Hi, I'm WELS President Mark Schrader. I'm here in Nairobi, Kenya, where I've been invited to attend the convention of the synod called the Lutheran Congregations in Mission for Christ. It's a relatively new church body, one that we just declared fellowship with 2 years ago. Here in Africa and around the world, WELS partners with churches to carry out the mission that God has given us. Sometimes those churches are brand new, sometimes they are missions that our synod started years ago and have now become independent.
Sunday morning in Nairobi means off to church for many Kenyans, including Pastor Mark Anariko Onunda. He's the presiding bishop, or head, of the Lutheran Congregations in Mission for Christ, Kenya, or LCMC.
The ministry is going great because at least we are seeing from time to time God giving us an opportunity of opening new churches, and that is the greatest thing. We can be proud of what God has done to us.
But it wasn't always smooth sailing for the LCMC. About a decade ago, this church body was formed after breaking off from a different Lutheran church body in Kenya because of corruption within church leadership. So, Pastor Onunda and a group of others stood firm in their beliefs and formed their own church, completely from scratch. They went from having church buildings to worshiping under a tree. Pastors went from having salaries and transportation to having nothing. Pastor Onunda's family was even ostracized, and personal attacks were made against him.
It was the most difficult time I've ever gone through. One, I was called names. Then later we were termed that we were devil worshippers. All those sorts of names we were called. But God is good that we were able to persevere and move on up to where we are today.
Today, the LCMC has grown by the grace of God. New church buildings are being built, and more people are hearing the gospel. But Pastor Onunda and his church body were still praying for fellow brothers and sisters in Christ to share this journey. So, he reached out to an American confessional Lutheran church body, the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod.
The request came through the WELS generic website. They sent it over to the World Missions Office, and then I immediately, seeing what was behind it, what they were talking about, sent it to our teammates here in Africa.
Good to see you. How are you?
Good.
This type of request is not uncommon for WELS to receive. In fact, it happens on a weekly basis.
So one of the things we'll talk about is that as we join to work with other churches, the most important thing is the Bible. And we have to be clear that we are unified on those teachings.
Having a partnership like this means that the gospel can travel quicker. For WELS to send missionaries into a completely foreign land, it would take years to fully learn the language, the culture, and the people. However, a trained local pastor understands all of that.
I think the focus of our WELS mission work has really started to embrace this additional aspect to our work. We still want to send missionaries out where they're doing some of that very raw evangelism work. They're in a community where there are no Christians, or very few, and they begin to reach out with the gospel. But then there's another aspect when there are churches that are mature, that they have their own workers, and they can run so much quicker than we can with the gospel.
Such as here in Kenya. And although they do have their own well-trained called workers, they recognize that they need more.
So our partnership, really, their request to us has been to train pastors. And so that's what we're zeroed in on. This church body seems very well organized to the point that they've got a system in place where they're able to build their own churches.
Because without the workers, no spreading the gospel cannot be effective if we don't have workers on the field. Especially when it comes to church planting, pastoral care, we really need them.
And it's not just here in Africa. Connections with existing churches are being made in Asia and Europe as well.
The opportunities are tremendous. The number of them, the size of them, the scope of them, I know a lot of this happens out of sight, and that can also mean that they're out of the minds of our people in WELS. And I just pray we never let that happen, that the Lord continue to use us.
WELS officially declare fellowship with the Lutheran Congregations in Mission for Christ, Kenya, and be it finally resolved that we ask God to give joy and blessing to both our church bodies.
Walking alongside brothers and sisters in Christ can be that arm around someone else's shoulder, saying, "We're in this together." Something that really hits home for Pastor Onunda.
We thank God for this blessed fellowship that He has given us.
Those are some of the moments where you feel you get yourself tears getting out of your eyes, because you know, after being called all these names, after being seen as a bad element, after being ridiculed here and there, and then all of a sudden one day you get the sun rising again.
Through these relationships with our brothers and sisters around the world, we're able to partner together to take the message of Jesus to more people than we possibly could alone. At WELS.net, you can learn more about these mission efforts and the people that are served with the gospel.